back to another episode of Wisdom and Hustle, where we are giving wisdom for your pivot and fuel for your hustle. We are giving space to stories, to people who are brave enough to reinvent themselves. So today's guest is Stephanie Randle, founder of Ignite Change, LLC, and Women and Girls Inspiring STEM Excellence, also known as WISE, dedicated to helping C-suite leaders and young girls build unshakable confidence, reclaim their voice, and step boldly into the rooms they were born to influence. Her journey has been about building a masterclass in what it costs to lead at a higher level and what it requires to sit fully in your power without apology. Stephanie will delve into why it's important for women to see their power differently and personally what it took for her to start using her voice. She will also take us inside the C-suite and tell us what we don't often hear: imposter syndrome, the cost of leading at a higher level, and why we don't sit in our power. This conversation is for every woman who aspires, but not currently leaning into their power and purpose, and who has felt the weight of not using their voice. So, welcome, Stephanie, and let's get into
Thank you for
it.
having me.
Of course, of course. And so, Stephanie, when we spoke, I was intrigued because I think about the number of women, Black women, who have been displaced. I think it's probably 3 to 500,000 now, who are at every level, and how they're trying to reinvent themselves. And I think it's great that you are talking about, like, let's ignite what's inside of us. Let's change what is holding us back from being the best versions of ourselves, but also really leaning into our purpose and power. So I think this is powerful. But before we get into Ignite Change, I really want to take a step back a little bit and talk to you about, like, um, what was the impetus for you that really kind of was the launch pad for you starting Ignite Change?
Um, I think it was a lot of things. First of all, I struggled as long as I can remember using my voice. I was always a quiet person, but I always was a hard worker. When I started working and got into corporate America and actually became a C-suite executive, I thought I had it made. I think everybody else thought I had it made too. I had a corner office, I had influence, I had a seat at the table. But what I didn't have was my voice. And not having your voice, not having the right confidence, and struggling with imposter syndrome, thinking somebody's going to find out that I do not know what I am doing. And I think the hardest thing through that whole journey, that those challenges was that I was also isolated. I had no one to talk to about what I was feeling or what I was going through. And the thought of usually you go to someone above you, and there was no one to go to. And then if I went below, those were my employees. They are expecting me to lead the company, have a strategic vision. So I couldn't talk to them either. So I found myself sort of stuck in a sense because I needed help, but there were no programs around. When I looked around, there was nothing there that I could reach out to or someone I could reach out to talk about what I was feeling.
And so what about peers, like other women of color?
At the time, there were very few women of color running businesses. When I worked at one point, I did have some mentors, couple of men and one woman, but they weren't running businesses. And I think when you are a minority woman running a business, sometimes you have different challenges than a white man might have or a white woman might have. It's just different. So trying to find someone to help me on this journey of growing and building a business, I just couldn't find that.
Gotcha. And so, you spoke about imposter syndrome, and we hear that term a lot in the workplace. And I wonder if people recognize that is happening to them when it's happening. And so talk a little bit about that and what your experience was with that.
Think people may not recognize it because you're so busy performing. You're performing at a level where they see that you um, have a seat at the table and you're influencing people and you sort of say the right things and do the right things. And so they're like, oh, wow, she's got it together. But you don't. That's the conversation that you have internally with yourself, not out, not in public. You're talking to yourself. You're like, I know I don't have it together, but what do I do?
Yeah. And where
You
do
know,
I
where do I
go?
go?
And who do I talk
Yeah,
to?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, because I wonder, Stephanie, because that term, I want to say that term, we just started really learning about that term probably just a few years ago and really understanding what it is and how it shows up. And then asking yourself, am I having a little imposter syndrome? Like, do I know if I'm having it? Do I not know? And so I find that quite interesting that most people sit alone in that and question, like, should I be here?
Absolutely. I had those
Yeah.
moments where I would be sitting in um, board meetings and be the senior person in the room and still thinking somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder and tell me I don't belong here because I hadn't done the internal work to go, Stephanie, you deserve to be in that seat. So I think it's that thought of maybe I don't belong there. We don't have the confidence. We are not using our voice. We are not doing the work we need to do to make sure that we become the best leaders that we can become.
Gotcha. And so I'm glad you just mentioned doing the work. And so what was that pivotal moment where you decided, I'm going to stop pretending, I'm going to do the work because I want to be a better version of myself. Um, and and consequently, I can see where other people are experiencing this and I can help them.
Probably, I didn't have definitely a definite time frame necessarily, but I was working with women executives and I was seeing that they were smart and talented, brilliant, but they were shrinking. And so seeing that and knowing, oh my gosh, they don't have the right tools to help them build within themselves got me to thinking, I need to make this my mission. I looked out in the workplace, I mean, excuse me, in the marketplace. I didn't see anybody else doing this type of work. So that sort of became my calling. And knowing that I too had gone through some struggles and trials in the C suite, I was like, this is needed.
And so what work did you do, Stephanie, so you could be empowering to other women?
Definitely got some coaches. And also, I'm a big component of reading good books that help you with leadership, and I did that. I also did some self assessments. Like, what am I missing? What do I need to be stronger on so that I can be a better leader? Because we have to all realize every time we sit in a leadership position, it's not something that is going to be easy to do because for me, I don't think there's a correct formula. You're going to have different employees, you're going to have different projects, different work, different struggles, but you need to have a foundation. My foundation needed to be a great foundation because my 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 company's sitting on top of it. So if I'm not prepared and I don't have what I need to be a great leader, my foundation is broken.
Gotcha. So let's fast forward. You had this aha moment. You did the work. You did that, you did that internal diagnosis, and you went and got your coach. And so now you have this aha moment that I know that I'm not alone. And I know that my calling is to help other women who are experiencing the same challenges, but either don't know how to articulate that or don't know where to go. And so Ignite Change is birth. Talk to me about birthing this baby that is now so pivotal for women who are experiencing what you experienced.
Think initially I had the idea, but there was some fear. Wasn't fear in failing. It was the fear of me telling my story out in public because these are all the things I said in private. And I also wondered, are they going to take me seriously? Like, how can I be an expert if I had all these trials and tribulations? Was it going to be a value in the marketplace? So, getting over those hurdles and also recognizing I have this expertise. I've been where you're trying to go. I know what you're dealing with. I had to, in a sense, make sure that I understood the value that I offered.
Yeah, you had to know what you were bringing
Hmm.
to the
Hmm.
table. And Stephanie, I think, and I can only speak for women of color. But I think a lot of women deal with that. We think that we're coming to the table into these situations with the glass half full, as opposed to the glass. I mean, we come to it, yeah, half empty as opposed to half full. And so we don't know our value and we don't know our worth. And I found that we don't have those sister girl support systems in place. And I mean, yeah, you and I in a sorority, but we don't have the entire 300,000 plus women that we can go
It's
to.
true.
And so it's hard to get that trusting circle. And so did you find that that was one of the elements too?
I think, we've been conditioned to believe that needing people is a liability. The higher you climb, the
Okay.
more self sufficient you're supposed to be, right? So, admitting that you need a community, some honest relationships with peers who understand what you're going through is often seen as a weakness. So, we have to remember community is not soft, it is strategy. Most of the women that I
Mhm.
know who have a community are doing well because of having that community. And one of the
Mhm.
things that I did was building my C-suite fearless circle. It's a community that should not um, that should not be put together by chance. I wanted it to be intentional and protected so C-suite women would get what they needed. I think every woman should have a community. If they don't have one,
God,
put one
yes.
together.
Yes. Find
Find your
find your
community.
tribe. Yes, I say that all the time. Find your tribe. And I say that for all ages. When you off to college, you're going to meet a lot of people. Find your tribe. You're going to go to the workplace. Find your tribe. So I think that that is so critically important. And so you talked about some of the challenges of starting Ignite Change, like will people take you seriously? Were there some other challenges to just kind of just starting that business of it?
No, I didn't have any other challenges like starting the business itself. It was really me going, hey, are people
Mm,
going to take me serious because of what I've had to deal with?
got you, got you, got you. So you weren't thinking that you were bringing anything valuable to the table. You thought that you were the liability.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Gotcha,
Yes.
gotcha. And so, so Stephanie, you say that, a lot of us don't understand, a lot of people don't really understand what happens at the C-suite level. And so, and it often helps or hurts women who may be aspiring because they just they're operating in the dark. And so help us understand how that translates to your clients.
I think what I see the most of when I work with women is the isolation. I don't think people talk about that enough. Because what we do talk about is, the victories. You got the title. We're celebrating all these good things that are happening to you. But sorry about that. We don't talk about the isolation, the code switching, being the only one in
Mm.
the room and trying to be in that room with people who look at you or think of you and go, she don't deserve to be leading anyway. That's all the things you have to deal with as a C-suite executive as a woman. That's an everyday occurrence.
And I would imagine the other people around the table are probably looking to see if you're going to fail, so they can say,
See?
"I told you
Mhm.
so."
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that they're sitting at the table saying, "How can I help them succeed?" Because if they succeed, the organization succeeds. But sitting around to sabotage or kind of waiting for that shoe to drop so they can say, "Mm-hmm, this is what happens when we have somebody of color or even a woman at the helm." And so it's probably yeah, it's probably a little challenging. And so what are some of those other unique pressures that you see that they face that people who are sitting on the outside of that door that they don't see?
I think it definitely is the code switching and the, what do I wanna call it? The performance of confidence. So when I say that, I mean, you're performing, people, see you and they respect you. But inside, you're just putting on a show. You're pretending to be something that you're not instead of being who you actually are. And that performance you're doing is exhaustive. It's not the daily work you're doing that's exhausting you. It's your performance every day that is exhausting you because leading from fear, it takes a lot of energy to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so what do most people misunderstand about confidence?
People misunderstand. Well, maybe I should say it this way. They say you either have it or you don't. You either have it or you don't. And it's like, but confidence is really rooted. It's a practice. So that means that if it's a practice, it's something that you can grow and gain and continue to work on. But I think a lot of people don't think of it that way.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I think that we use that term kind of loosely and without explanation is what I will also say. That people say be confident, but not all the time do people know how to be confident or what that looks like for themselves.
And I think part of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is sometimes when people see someone else who's confident, they try to imitate that. But that's not you. What would make you feel
yeah.
confident to be able to step into the rooms and speak with courage and people see you as, oh wow, she's really leading. I like the way she leads. I will follow her wherever. You have to figure out what your confidence level is, what's going to make you feel confident. And I think sometimes people think like if I watch this person, I see they're confident, I can pick that up for myself. And it doesn't work that way.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so, so when somebody becomes a part of Ignite Change, what are some of the techniques that you give them that helps them kind of build up and get to a place that they need to be, whether they're aspiring to be leaders, or they're leaders where they stand, or kind of shaky leaders?
One of the things I first want to do is sit down and find out their challenges and obstacles. And secondly, I want to figure out where you're going. Do you have a real roadmap to get there? Because I find that a lot of C-suite women, they get to that top level and they're like, I'm here, all right. But they don't have a way to stay there. They don't have a roadmap. So trying to give them a roadmap, for instance, will definitely help. But also with my approach, I also want to talk about what they're really feeling, digging into those deep layers, doing that work that sometimes is uncomfortable, but it has to be done so that you can become the leader you're supposed to be, not who you think you should be, who you're supposed to be.
And do you find that going through this process that perhaps some people realize that this is not for them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, because I think there's a little bit of, you've gotten to that level and then you realize maybe I'm not cut out. I don't want to say not cut out, but this is not really what I thought it was, or this is not where I want to be. And there's a little bit of shame in like getting to that level and then not being at that level.
I think you have to view it differently. If your premise is just to be at that level, to have that title, and you want nothing more, you can keep doing it. But if your intention really is to lead effectively, make a difference and impact in the community with your employees, then you're going to have to think a little bit differently and navigate a little bit differently. So I think there's no shame in pivoting because a lot of times when we create companies or start a company, we have this vision. This is what we're doing. This is what I'm doing. But that may not be what you end up with because that may not be your calling. So it's always,
Mhm,
if you
mhm.
need to pivot, pivot. There's no shame in doing that.
Yeah, yeah. So, Stephanie, I want to talk a little bit about your nonprofit where you work with these amazing
Hmm.
young women. WISE is what it's called. And there seems to be a little bit of a correlation based on what you've shared between Ignite Change and your nonprofit. So, talk to us about this other work that you're doing, how it correlates, how it might be different, but it's still girding up um, the power inside of you.
So, like you said, Wise and Ignite Change, they are two different missions, but they are two expressions of the same one. And that is every woman at every stage of her journey deserves to belong in a room that she was built for. WISE, which is Women and Girls Inspiring STEM Excellence, exists because the leadership pipeline does not begin in the boardroom. It begins in the classroom. So you have young girls right now that are trying to determine when they go to a science lab or they see a technology platform or an engineering challenge, whether or not that is meant for them, right? And we want to make sure that they understand absolutely it is. So the correlation between the two is that Ignite Change, we're working with women who are already at the top. With WISE, we're working with the young girls to get them there and
Mhm.
building that belonging, interrupting that self doubt, and planting seeds so that they can be confident before the world has a chance to uproot those seeds. And together, that represents that full life cycle commitment to women leadership because the next generation of CFOs and CTOs and CEOs, they're sitting in the classroom right now. And they deserve to know without question that the room at the top was always meant for them.
And so, what kind of tools are you giving them to help them build that confidence that they can reach the top?
So, what we do at Wise, we definitely have different events where we talk about confidence. We talk about, doing coding. They have mentorship. So, we try to do it at different angles because each girl needs different things. You're going to have what we found out is that usually in elementary school or maybe early high school, girls, they're all inspired about being in STEM. They're excited. They're doing all these neat projects. But by the time they get to the end of high school, first of college, they're dropping out. And they're not dropping out because they can't do the work. They're dropping out because they don't have the support. They're dropping out because someone is saying to them, you don't belong here. Why don't you major in something else? this is really hard. And so, if you don't have any support to tell you that's untrue, you can do this, you're going to choose another major. You're going to drop out. So, we want to stop that from happening so that, yes, they can stay in those areas and STEM industries, but also they can also make it to the C suite because there's a place for them.
Gotcha. And so now, Stephanie, we have these two very different audiences. Like one is at is kind of in the beginning, and one is kind of at the very highest level. And so we have this whole body in between that women who so much need ignite change. Like, so where do they go?
Well, first thing they should probably do is go to my website, Ignite Change Now, and then you can set up a strategy session. And we were going to talk about where you want to go. What is that next level you're trying to reach? And even if you're beginning, like you're just getting started, that's fine. Maybe you're already sitting in the chair, but like I said before, you don't have a roadmap, so you don't know what you should be doing or what the next step is. That's the place to start at my website, or they can email me at srandle, and that's SRANDLE at Ignite Change Now.
And so now I want to kind of go back to where we
Mm.
started at the beginning. We talked about, you know, this 3 to 500,000 women. And so it will require many of them, many of us to pivot and think about like our what's next. And so how do you do that when you've been doing something for 30 years, you've been doing something for 25 years? Like it is such it's so scary because you've identified yourself in this lane. And now all of a sudden you have to figure out how to swim in a new lane. And so how do you how do we do that?
Think the first thing you want to do is think about what you did for that 20 or 30 years and how to pivot that to something that you could be maybe a consultant or a fractional CEO, CFO, or CTO. Maybe you had the idea all along while you were working for somebody else. I really want to start my business. I know I can do. Start your business. There's no reason for you to wait to be ready. Go ahead and start your business. This is a prime time to do that. To start what? Doing something you love and be working for yourself, helping others, whatever that business may be, making an impact in the community, helping others. Start a business.
And we know business now we know starting a business is
It is
challenging. We know that is challenging, and so what I will say is, do the
the
work.
work.
Do the work. Figure out how to do it. And so it's and I think there's also that fear factor, like that whole thing of starting over. And what is the message there that you're really not starting over, you're starting something new.
Exactly. You're starting something new. And as I talked about before, it's okay to pivot. It's just different because someone's making you pivot because you have no other choice. It's pivot. Start something that is your calling, something you love to do. Was it a hobby? Make it not a hobby anymore. You have this opportunity. And yes, starting a business is hard, but it's doable. And the big thing is you're
That's
going
a
to be
great
working for yourself, doing something for the community, whatever it is. This is an opportunity for you to grow.
it. I love it. So Stephanie, you started Ignite Change to really have an impact on the people that you serve. And so, let's say 30 years from now, what legacy and impact do you want to have on the people that you serve through Ignite Change? And how do you want them to see themselves differently?
I think I want my legacy to be something that, of course, endures. And so I want to work with C-suite women and help them get to where they are. But the other part of it is I going to be starting what I call the C-suite fearless circle next. And it'll be where I will work with college women to get them started on that same pathway to go into being a C-suite executive, but starting earlier so we can work on the self-doubt, confidence, their voice, starting early before they actually get to the C-suite. So that's one of the things that I definitely want to do because I just think it's so important for us to invest in our girls that are coming along.
Mhm.
The other thing I want to continue to do is the work that I've put together. Like, I feel very grateful to have this opportunity to create a vision and then implement my vision. And so I want that to continue. And then the other thing that I feel like is next for me is I'm taking the C Suite Fearless Circle and I'm actually creating a dynamic app so that women can get the same type of guidance and support and community and coaching through an app so that if they have questions or concerns, they have a community and they can use it wherever they are in the world.
Wow. 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 I mean, like, Ignite Change is
That's
busy
busy. Yes.
here, but necessarily busy because our women, young women, will need you. And so as we begin to wind down, like, tell me, what is your hustle playbook?
My hustle playbook. It's probably different than most people's playbook, but I will say
Mhm.
these are the three things for me that are non negotiable. I always protect my vision. And that means that I'm sticking to the vision that I was given. It may not be trendy, it may not be overly profitable or even popular, but it's my vision, it's my compass, and anything else is noise for me. The second thing is I operate in my approach and not the market's mood, which means that whatever I have built, it's not a trend, it is a truth. It's the truth that I saw. And I saw this that it was missing in the market. And then lastly, I'm going to invest in myself just as aggressively as I invest in my business. As I said before, when you're building a business, you have to have the right foundation. And I can put everything in my business, but if I'm not putting things in myself, I'm the main foundation. It starts with me. So doing the self-assessments, doing the coaching, doing the things that I need to make sure that I'm a great leader. That's that has to happen.
I love that. I like, look, you are being true to you're being true to you and not, like you said, what's not trending and what's not popular. And so for women and girls who are trying to find their voice, their power and purpose, what are your words of wisdom?
So I have three words of wisdom. The first one is silence. Silence was my default, not using my voice. Whether that was in the boardroom or it was a season where I needed assistance, I never asked for it. And what I recognized was that every time I chose silence over my voice, I gave away my power. Secondly, discomfort. None of us wants to be, uncomfortable, but I follow discomfort because doing that allows me to continue to become the person that I'm supposed to be becoming. And then lastly, legacy. We sort of talked about legacy already, but in the past, I always wanted to please those in the room. I wanted the recognition, the validation. And growing now, I recognize I need to be focused on other things. I shouldn't be focused on what will impress them. I should be really focused on what will outlast me.
Mm,
So that changes how I lead, how I build, and how I pour into each executive woman that I serve. We have to remember applause, it fades, but legacy, it endures.
wow. I woo, woo, that is great. Now, Stephanie, you already told us what's next. So tell us again, What is next for Ignite Change?
And night change, you get an opportunity to see the app come out. It'll be called Apex Circle, and it's where C-suite women can find coaching and their community and resources to help them be better leaders. I also talked about the C-Suite Fearless Circle next for college women to help them get started on their journey to working, making it to the C-Suite. So look for us on college campuses, universities, and doing partnerships with institutional uh, communities so that we can get those type of things in place and start helping these young ladies now. And then I think that's it. Those are my two big things.
Big indeed.
There's a lot of C-suite women out here that need assistance and help and
And
community.
and and Steph, yeah, but there are a lot of women
Yes,
aspiring to the
yes,
C-suite.
absolutely.
So, like, while there may not be many, I mean, what, we're still, what, 1%? There are still a lot of Black women aspiring to the C-suite, and they are gonna need the tools and resources, that really gets them there, but also keeps them there. And so I think this is amazing that you're starting at the elementary, going into the college, into adulthood. And so thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't thank you enough for your honesty, your wisdom, your inspiration and motivation for finding your voice, your power, and your purpose. So these were great words of wisdom for someone's pivot and fuel for the hustle. And in the words of Snoop Dogg, until the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that's Wisdom in Hustle. And until the next episode, we'll see you again. Thanks for joining.